Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage. On a beautiful sunny day in the state of Maine, it's Thursday. The snow is melting when the sun comes out. It's even melting when it's not. First night in a long time that it didn't dip below freezing, so that's awesome. What's not awesome is I just shot this whole video, 12 minutes worth, almost without stopping, with my new lapel mic and the little adapter that goes in the phone. Went to play it back, nobody home, no sound. That makes me sad. So let's do it again. Just before lunch, I was washing miscellaneous parts and installing them in this Chevrolet case. I'd already stripped out the Cadillac transmission that's out of your view over here. And essentially I'm taking that case in trade and giving him an 8-bolt case and putting the crazy 14-inch tail housing back on it, an output shaft, and taking all the Cadillac internals, rebuilding them, putting them in this case, because he's LS swapping his Cadillac. This guy watched the videos online and then realized that we didn't live that far apart, and he travels not far from my house on the way to work every day, so how cool is that? This particular case was one I bought a few years ago. The bell housing was not cut off because it was a Chevy. The guy sent it to me whole. It cost extra to ship it. I remember that. But everything was stripped out of it, including the parking pole, which is behind this little cut plug right here. So I've showed you in the past how if you're removing that, you can take the clip off the pin that's inside right here, and with a screwdriver you can push the pin and the cut plug out. However, the cut plug is useless because it's been squished into the hole. Not much chance it's going to stay in there. So, fortunately, the Dorman 3/8 cut plug that we all use if you're dual feeding a stock valve body and putting a cut plug in the hole, it's the same one. Part number 555-115. Buy them in bulk. Wicked handy. And it also fits right in here, no problem. I put a little aviation former gasket around the hole, drive it in, wipe it up. You never know anything happened. So I didn't want to take the parking pole out of the case I'm going to keep because someday down the road I'd have to do the same thing. So why not just do it now? And in the future I won't have to mess with it. Much like the 68 Impala transmission that we talked about a few weeks ago, this is a 68 Cadillac transmission, and it is just as nice inside, and even the pump was nearly rust-free, even though it was out in the air. I think I showed you that when it was sitting there hanging on the stand, bleeding out. But inside, it has seen a lot of heat. I don't know where the car's from or its life history, but, typical Cadillac out in the desert with air conditioning, everything gets pretty hot. And every O-ring and gasket is like a potato chip. You can't stretch the O-rings to get them off anything. You have to cut them or break them somehow. So funny, like the electrical pass-through, the 3 tangs that hold it in the case are still plenty pliable, and I was able to remove it, carefully cut the O-ring off it, put a new one on, and reused it in here, no problem. So it's funny how different materials react to heat. So that's what I was doing before lunch, washing parts, and as usual, I have gloves on, which makes the next part of the story a lot less gross because before lunch, I was picking meat off a giant rib that my buddy Charlie and Judy had cooked for me last weekend because he knew I was coming up the first of the week, and we reset the 4-link on his gray Camaro that I'm pointing over there, the 3rd-gen Camaro that runs the 850 class with a 632 single 4-barrel. A beautiful car, and he'd had the rear suspension all apart. I think he put all new rod ends in it. We built the rear end for it. I changed the ring and pinion just for maintenance. And so picked all that apart. My wife she works from home, had a meeting at 12 o'clock, which is normally lunchtime for most of the world. So I went in early after washing parts and stripped out a whole rib. Delicious. Damn good. Speaking of drag race chassis, it kind of brought me back and forward at the same time. In the winter of 87, 88, I had taken my 70 Chevelle SS454 and cut it all apart because I was putting an Alston tube chassis under it. It was pretty much the first of the kit cars. There wasn't a whole lot of chassis kits available before that. And that kind of started a boom in the 90s where everybody's building a tube chassis car. Long before leaf springs and radial tires and all the craziness that's happening now, you either had a street vehicle, or you back halved it, or put a tube chassis under it and went fast. Well, what we thought was fast at the time. And the Alston brothers had a chassis company. All the cars they built, including my Chevelle, the chassis they sold, were built out of 120 wall tubing, mild steel. And that was fine. And there was thousands of them. And then NHRA and SFI decided that the minimum thickness, instead of being 112, which was the spec when all these cars were built, they changed it to 118. You take 120 thousandths thickness tube and bend it on the outside of the bend. It's probably 118 by itself and plus or minus mil spec of 0.006. All these cars failed sonic test, my car included. I had already sold it a year before that, and the guy crashed it before then, and he lived, which is a whole nother story, but thousands and thousands of tube chassis cars were pushed into garages. They weren't wrecked. A lot of them were probably updated or fixed, but a lot of them were pushed away, and now I see them being drugged back out and running all the outlaw stuff, the no prep stuff with no tech whatsoever. All these old cars are showing up again. You can spot them a mile away if you ever worked on one. They have some unique features, and they're being used again. I can't say that that 6 thousandths or the thickness of the tube really makes a big safety difference, but I know for a fact, my car included, you're sitting next to the drive shaft with nothing but a piece of aluminum between you and it, and that's not good. So right around Christmas that year, my big brother, my only brother, my compass, he was always and still is there to guide me automatically the way I need to go. He bought me this book. I was already bought the chassis, was working on the car. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just doing it. When you're 20-something years old, early 20s, that's what you do. So guidance showed up, and I read the book and learned. That's all I ever really had. Until Monday of this week, I was watching a video, and the guy was referencing the Jerry Bickle chassis book, so I went right on and ordered one. Funny, on Amazon and everywhere else, Walmart, they're like $118. Straight from Jerry Bickle, $59. And you had an option for shipping. I chose postal service, probably the cheapest, and they sent it FedEx 2 days for $11.25. So, and I got a catalog which I can't wait to read. So that was Monday night. Tuesday I was at my buddy Charlie's working on his 4-link, and we were talking about chassis books, and he has the Bickle book, but he also has this one by Dave Morgan. And this one is more written from an engineering perspective. It's a lot of information, a lot of charts and everything else, where the Bickle book is probably easier to understand and read. But I haven't read this one yet, but I know I've perused it one time before in the 90s or whenever it was written, and definitely a lot of information in here. So if you can somehow get all this into your brain, you'll be a chassis whiz. There's also a lot of good videos from Tim McCamus and others. Most do it pretty much the same way. Talking with the 4-links now, and there's a lot of new technology, because when this book was written, trust me, leaf springs and going fast with radial tires wasn't a thing. Caltrax and even 4-links in radial tires, a completely different game. They used to be squat and go. Now they want to raise the car up. It's a whole different thing. So I'm sure there'll be more books to come, but excuse me, I'm glad I bought the Jerry Bickle book. I can't wait to read it. And I find it interesting that most all your chassis manufacturers, not all of them, but all the big ones started in Missouri. So they probably all used to work for each other or broke apart. Who knows what happened, but a lot of your chassis shops were and still are in Missouri. Last week, I shared the story of a man named Chewy from Tijuana, Mexico. That's how he said it, Mexico. Thanking me for making many Turbo 400 videos. He was fixing The transmission in the truck his dad had left him, and this guy was 60-something years old, he said in the message. And it really made my day. Again, you don't start making a YouTube channel for fame, fortune, and being, showered with gifts, but sometimes that happens. And there's no way to describe the feeling when it does. So just praise, doesn't cost a word it doesn't cost a cent to say thanks, my mother always told me. So I thank him for making my day. Yesterday at lunchtime, the post office wagon pulls in and throws me a box. A man named Steve from Idaho sent me a box of parts. He started by watching my transmission videos, and he also noticed my 55 Chevy videos. He has one himself, a drag race project, Pro Street project of his own. Looks like a twin turbo big block. That's going to be cool. And with his project came some extra parts that he thought I could use, and he sent them to me. I just am blown away at the kindness. I mean, a hood emblem. Well, I have one of these. It's so bad it's still outside on the hood. It's all pitted to heck. This is perfect. A brand new set of upper taillights. A set of beautiful used trim rings. I had one of these I found in the warehouse when I picked up the Race 55. I didn't have a pair, so I was gonna have to buy either repops or find some decent ones. These are just fine for my driver quality rig. And he also gave me the left and right hood trim, grill trim, which is awesome. So it's just no words to describe how you feel when strangers send you stuff because they want to repay you somehow. I'm not asking for people to do that. I'm just sharing how wonderful that is. And to be honest, when I started the YouTube channel, not anything I ever figured would happen. So, my channel's, I wouldn't even call it moderately successful yet. I got a lot of videos. You put my videos compared to the amount of subscribers I have, it's probably not on par with what normal is, but according to the algorithm that YouTube tells you every time you post a video, I get green up arrows, so things are happening. So please subscribe if you can. And again, I'm not asking anybody to send me anything, but when it happens, I have to share it because it's just a wonderful feeling. So now I got to get back to working on the old Chevrolet transmission. It's going to be a weird looking one with a 14-inch tail housing, but should be a cool car, the LS swapped Cadillac. That guy found me online. He was watching transmission videos, was going to do this himself, and then realized we didn't live very far apart, and he travels right by the end of my road on the way to work every day. So it's a small world after all. On that happy note, have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.